What is going on, guys? My name is John and welcome back to yet another video. Earlier last year I took on a challenge where I beat Pokemon Platinum without earning any experience from battles, which was to no surprise a pretty tough challenge, and a lot of you wanted to see me take on another game in the Pokemon series. Today we're going to find out how easy you can beat Pokemon White without earning any experience in battle. Now, as you can probably tell, this is a very straightforward challenge. The game is coded so whenever I win a wild battle, trainer battle, gym battle, you name it, I will earn no experience from knocking out the Pokemon. There are obvious workarounds like using rare candies and putting my Pokemon in the daycare to gain levels, but that would completely defeat the point of the video, so we're going to do anything and everything we can to avoid not gaining a single point of experience on any of our Pokemon. I also made so we can't heal our Pokemon in battle, however held items like berries are completely allowed. I streamed the entire challenge over on my Twitch channel, which if you haven't checked out I'd highly recommend it considering that I have a bunch of challenges lined up that I'll be streaming very soon. Before we get into the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss an upload. Roughly 40% of the people that watch aren't subscribed, and if you don't like my videos you can always subscribe later on down the road. With all that out of the way, let's just jump right into it. So if you watched the last video I did where I took on Pokemon Platinum, you know that this is for sure a very unique challenge where you have to use everything available to its highest potential. Not being able to level up your Pokemon doesn't seem like a difficult thing early on, but there are many complications that happen regardless of what level you catch a Pokemon at. After going through the initial intro stuff with the professor, our journey begins in New Vema Town where we meet up with Charon and Bianca in our bedroom and pick out our first Pokemon. Obviously a level 5 Pokemon isn't really going to take us that far in this kind of challenge, but before the first gym, this is easily going to be one of the strongest Pokemon available at our disposal. I ended up letting my chat vote for this, and they decided on Oshawott, and I took down my new rivals pretty easily. They then decided to nickname it Fortnite, which let me know that the rest of the Pokemon nicknames for this playthrough will be equally as bad. Now, when it comes to encounters available before the first gym, we're pretty limited on type diversity, but thankfully there are quite a few Pokemon that are available at a higher level than our starter. Because literally every Pokemon available on Route 1 can be caught at a higher level, there really isn't any point in catching anything here, but I still caught a Patrat here to test to make sure I wouldn't gain any experience. Upon reaching Accumula Town, we have our first interaction with N, and although his Purloin is level 7, he kinda threw by using Growl too much, so I was able to beat this on the first try. Route 2 is going to be the hotspot for good encounters. Lillipup and Patrat can be encountered at level 7, which unfortunately makes them the strongest Pokemon available in the wild. Just so I don't have to do more work than I needed to, I just hunted around for a bit to catch the highest ones I could find, but if we need to grab more, there's no downside in coming back. Strident City is the home of the first gym in the game, and although we can't go west of the city, we can head into the Dream Yard to take on a few trainers, as well as get a little bit of a reward. The woman in the back will give us one of the elemental monkeys based on the starter we chose, which in this case is going to be Pansear. This is going to be our highest level Pokemon because we get it at level 10, and unfortunately when it comes to team diversity, this is all we've got. When it came time to take on the gym, I could kinda tell from the start that the final battle wasn't going to be that enjoyable considering that it took about 2 of my own Pokemon to take down 1 of the regular trainers in the gym. But after a few heals, I was able to make it back to the back of the gym. Now, this gym is unique in that there are 3 gym leaders, and you only fight 1, which completely depends on which starter you selected at the beginning of the game. In this case, because we chose Oshawott, we're going to take on Salon. The only true difference that each leader has is that they have one of the Pan Monkeys that is a direct counter to our starter, however the gift Pokemon that we received earlier is a direct counter to that, so realistically we do have the coverage that we need. Salon will always lead with Lillipup, and when it went for workup turn 1, I figured that this battle was going to take quite a while. After using only 2 workups, it one-shot literally every Pokemon on my team, excluding Pansear, so I figured that leading with him was going to be my only solid option. However, because I was going to need it to take down Pansage, I did a test and gave a few Pokemon Oran Berries, so if they did survive a hit, they'd heal a pretty large chunk back because of how low level they are. After letting him sweep my first Patrat again, I sent out Pansear. Because it once again used 2 workups, it dealt a lot of damage, but then this happened. So apparently if your Pokemon has the ability Pickup and the opposing Pokemon uses a held item in battle, your Pokemon has a chance to take that used item and then use it themselves. I'm really glad that my chat was as confused as I was, because admittedly I had zero idea that that's what the Pickup ability actually did in battle, and to be honest I didn't really think it did anything in battle, but I definitely learned quickly that this was not the way to win. As you can imagine, giving a berry to Lillipup on top of the potions that Salon already had, it let him go on more of a massacre than he did the last attempt, so I realized that after a few more attempts I was going to need a completely different game plan. I figured that the best order of business was to grab stronger Pokemon that could potentially take a hit, but because 2 levels wasn't exactly going to make or break my chances of winning, I had to take a step further and check the natures to ensure that I was capable of dealing more damage or at least be as fast as I could possibly be. With our new team of rats and dogs led by a single monkey, I went to take on the gym again. On the next few attempts, I decided to leave with Pansear because it can live at least one hit, and rather than use Incinerate, Scratch had more longevity considering that Lillipup usually goes for at least 2 workups before it's ready to attack. This means that we can deal 1 big hit before we get knocked out, and then the rest of the team can potentially hit it with more physical moves to bring it down. And I get a crit? Do you heal? Unfortunately, that's easier said than done. On the next attempt, I managed to get a crit with Pansear on my second turn, and because I knew that I was going to need it for Pansage, I swapped into one of my Lillipup to take it down. Although it seemed like Pansear would have been the obvious play to take care of business, Incinerate dealt literally nothing to it, and I figured that I had lost again. Even though Scratch would have done the most, I knew that I had to solely rely on the clutch factor of my gaming abilities, and I went for Lick. On the last turn, I paralyzed it, which gave the entire rest of the team the chance to outspeed and then take it down. After literally an entire hour of attempts, I had finally claimed the first badge in the challenge, but there's a solid chance that this will get a lot easier now, right? Right? From here we can head back in the dream yard, fight some grunts, and get the sea gear from the scientists, but because there's now grass accessible here, I ended up catching a few more high-level Patrat, as well as Muna, so I have an actual special attacker on my team. This then leads to some more interaction with Team Plasma on Route 3, and a battle against Charon again, which was surprisingly very easy with all of our new firepower. Before taking on the grunts in the Wellspring Cave, I decided on grabbing Rock'n'Rolla to help later down the road, but I was well aware there are much better Pokemon available to use. It's no surprise that Nakreen City is our next gym stop, and while it may seem like our options are relatively limited, our cheat code is the west of the city and the outskirts of the forest. If we talk to this woman, we can receive the TM for Rock Smash, which is a guaranteed super effective move on Lenora's entire team. Now, although all of our Lillipup can learn this, all of those Pokemon are much too weak considering we'd be facing Pokemon nearly double our level. However, there is one Pokemon that offers a lot of potential for the next few battles. Throw. This fighting type Pokemon can be encountered at 10% outside of the Pinwheel Forest between levels 12 and 17, which is already a pretty sweet deal, but we're introduced also into a new mechanic, that being the Doubles Grass. In turn for finding 2 Pokemon at once, the range for encounters increases to between levels 14 and 19, which would make our team level higher than most of everything that we had to fight in the gym. The only downside is that in this grass, the capture rate is significantly lower, and since we don't have a ton of money at the moment, this may not be worth our while. This is a pretty lesser known mechanic in these games, but essentially it's based around how many Pokemon you've registered in your Pokedex. In our case, we've caught basically nothing, which means that our catch rate in the darker grass is a third of what it would normally be, which means that we're going to need to get pretty lucky if we want to save Pokeballs for the next section. Just in case I didn't need to do more work than I needed to, I caught just one and made my way into the gym before being stopped by N. Although his team is still higher level than most of what I have on my team, Muna came in super clutch with Yawn, so I was able to get through this on the first try. From the moment I entered the gym, I knew I was definitely going to need more than one throw considering how high the levels are for Lenora's team, but just to test the waters, I gave it a shot with the only one that I had, and surprisingly, it did a pretty decent job taking down the trainers in the gym. Did I still have to heal after every battle? Sure, but this gave me the impression that really I only needed a little more strength on my team and then this would have been a clean sweep. After taking care of everything before facing the gym leader, I went back to the Pinwheel Forest and grabbed a couple more throw, most importantly a level 17, and then went to take on our second leader. Like I mentioned before, her team is based around normal type Pokemon, which consists of Herdier and Watchog as her ace. Even though we do have the Rock Smash TM that we received earlier, Vital Throw deals massive damage in comparison in turn for negative priority, but to really no one's surprise, her team couldn't keep up with even one throw rather than the 3 that I had lined up. I honestly wish I had more to say here, but I will gladly take a single attempt gym after the mess that I had to deal with the last one. Okay, what's next? The next section is once again relatively short. With only 2 actual locations to get Pokemon, our possibilities are slim, but not bad. While we've already experienced the outside of the Pinwheel Forest, the interior has a completely different selection of encounters available, so long as we don't have a problem dealing with a ton of Plasma Grunts. The primary target for this section is going to be Pidove, which ranges between levels 15 and 16, and no matter which one you'll get, you'll have access to Air Cutter, which is a fantastic early game move with its high critical hit ratio. After returning the enormous Stolen Skull back to Lenora, we can hop on the bridge and make our way to the big city. Castelia City is our next stop for this section, and considering that Berg's gym is focused around bug-type Pokemon, this might play out the same way as Lenora's gym. However, I decided to head north to take a little bit more time getting some backup. Now, normally when you head in this direction, you're forced to take on both your rivals, but since I haven't completed the little event with the sages next to the gym, we can completely avoid doing that and venture into Route 4. Like I mentioned earlier, Pidove is a really good Pokemon, but Darumaka is something else. On the outside, this Pokemon looks like a normal, well, actually, I have no idea what this is. Hold on. Okay, it's a round red Pokemon, sure. Stubby tail, right, gotcha. It has warm droppings, which ancient people would put in their clothes to keep warm. I came here looking for an answer, and I left with more questions. But the point is, the Pokemon is way stronger than it looks. With 90 base attack and the Hustle ability, Fire Fang deals an absurd amount of super effective damage this early into the game, with the only downside being that it has a decent chance to miss. The level range for this is 15 to 18, which may seem a little low, but I'm pretty confident the levels won't be that much of an issue. After catching 2 and then meeting with Berg and Iris, we can head into the 3rd gym. To no surprise, Darumaka one-shot literally every trainer in this gym. For some reason, every trainer has a Pokemon in the Sewaddle line, which are quad weak to Fire Fang, so there was nothing that could stop them from running the whole gym. Berg's team consists of 3 Pokemon, Whirlipede, Dwebble, and Levani as the ace. One notable thing to keep in mind for the future is that this gym is the first to have 2 Hyper Potion heals, and this will be a constant throughout the remainder of this challenge. The only Pokemon of concern is Dwebble because it has access to Smackdown, which deals a lot of damage to Darumaka, but our throw from earlier is still high enough level to wall this Pokemon without any issues. With one more Fire Fang, we destroy Levani and claim the 3rd badge in this challenge. Overall, this was definitely the easiest section by far, so maybe the next one will be even better. From here we can battle Bianca and Charon, which to no surprise were very straightforward battles, and we reach the end of Route 4 to get to Nimbasa City. Even though this is the location of the 4th gym leader, there's still plenty to do. This location is the branching point for the rest of the Unova region, as we can head east, west, and even access more of Route 4, which means more encounters. At the entrance to the city, we can save an old man and get the bicycle, as well as go on a Ferris wheel date with N and then challenge him to a battle. After getting completely destroyed by his Sigilyph, I realized that now would be a proper time to rebuild the entire team, and thankfully we have a few options to work with. I knew that I was probably going to need something from the desert to counter Elise's gym, but at the same time I knew that basically none of those was going to help against N's team. I figured that the best option was Emolga on Route 5 through the Rustling Grass, as you can find them at a relatively decent level and they're guaranteed to have the move Spark, which surely has to deal a lot of damage to Sigilyph. Because you can only find them in the Rustling Grass, this can take a while, so I managed to also catch Liepard because I figured that Fake Out can always come in clutch. With this team I was able to take down N, which leads us immediately to the next gym. When it came to taking on the trainers, it was very similar to the first gym, as I had to heal after literally every single battle, which was admittedly pretty annoying because of how not linear this gym is, but overall it wasn't that tough. Elise, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Her team consists of 2 Emolga and Zebstrika as her ace, and every single one of these Pokemon pose a threat in their own way. For some reason, both Emolga have the same exact moveset, however, the greatest threat is the signature move for this gym, that being Volt Switch. Because everything she has outspeeds my team, they're able to deal a large chunk of damage and swap to another Pokemon over and over. Considering that her team is also about 5 levels higher than my entire team, I was going to need yet another new team. The first Pokemon that came to mind to fix this team was Sandile in the Desert Resort. Not only do these range from levels 19 to 22, but both abilities that it can have are extremely good against her team. Intimidate is fantastic because their movesets are exclusively physical, but they'll also be unable to Volt Switch because of Sandile's ground typing. I ended up catching 3 of those, as well as Dwebble, to possibly help take down Emolga if I could survive a Volt Switch. To put it as simple as possible, this new team had the ability to win, but the coordination wasn't exactly there.
We're down, but we're not out. As long as it doesn't use quick attack, we can't lose.
Dwebble! You did it! No, you idiot! How could you mess that up? The stage was yours! After a few more attempts, I decided to call it a day and come back to the next stream and give it another shot. After doing a little thinking, I realized that the team needs to be refined a little bit more, and I had a few ideas on how we could approach that. The first idea was that I needed all of my Sandile to have the Intimidate ability. Because I knew that they're unable to switch out to reset their stats, I can just swap indefinitely between all of my Sandile until the Pokemon can't deal any more damage. Although this would help dramatically, I figured that I could take it one step farther with one more Pokemon that most people wouldn't consider. Yamask. Although it may not seem like much, Yamask can be extremely helpful in both making them a lot less powerful, as well as deal a ton of damage under the right circumstances. At level 21, Yamask learns Will-O-Wisp, which will have the attacking power of the opposing Pokemon, but it will also boost the power of Yamask's Stab Hex, which will bring its base power to over 100. With a couple of these on the team, I knew this was probably going to be the best option available at the moment, unless I wanted to spend a bunch of time dealing with natures and max level encounters. I also decided to grab the TM for Dig on Route 4. This will give the Sandile more firepower against Zebstrika, because although I was having trouble with taking down Emolga, I knew that that was going to be the real threat. To ensure that I would have the easiest time with this battle, I rode all the way back to the Wellspring Cave to collect a couple rock gems, which admittedly took way too long to find, but I knew that it was going to come in very clutch with taking down one of the Emolga. On the following attempt, I decided to lead with Sandile to let off an initial Intimidate, and continue to swap between the 3 I had on my team until it wasn't dealing any significant damage. Unfortunately, I ended up getting a crit on one of them, and after a Hyper Potion, I was already 2 down. I activated the rock gem on Sandile to take it down, to which she sent out the next Emolga. Because I knew the intimidation strategy was out the window, I brought out one of the Yamask. I went for Will-O-Wisp because I assumed it was going to switch out, and thankfully she did to get a burn on Zebstrika. From here, I predicted that it was going to go for Spark because it would have been its strongest move, and I then absorbed it with Sandile's typing. It then ended up getting a Flame Charge off, however I did tank the hit and I was able to land a dig. With the residual burn damage, it knocked itself out, which left me with nearly 4 full HP Pokemon against her last Emolga. I will admit that it definitely gave my team a run for its money because of some lucky moments, however I was able to take down the last Emolga to secure the 4th badge. In total, this took 8 tries, but the amount of prep that it took to take her down was way more than it needed to be. With half of the Unova badges collected, we can head back to Route 5 and have a battle against Charon, which was surprisingly a lot more difficult than I imagined it would be. I think the greatest issue was mostly just the diversity of his team rather than the levels, but I ended up going to Lost Lorn Forest to catch a Tranquil so I could actually get through it. Before we head off to the bridge section to open up more of the map, I figured I'd catch a Minccino now for one small side quest that I can do that will make the next gym significantly easier. After crossing the bridge, we enter Driftveil City for the next gym, but as always, we still have a little wiggle room for some new encounters. The first thing we can do is enter this house and talk to this man. With the Minccino I just caught, I can trade it for Basculin. Although this does make a decent amount of sense because the next gym is based around ground-type Pokemon, the catch is that unlike most other Pokemon games, this Basculin will always have an adamant nature, which is extremely beneficial to pair with its 92 base attack and priority Aqua Jet that it has right when you receive it. To make this Pokemon all the more powerful, I bike back to Nacrene City to grab the Mystic Water from this woman. This specific interaction allows you to get that, Charcoal, or the Miracle Seed, but after looking over the future gyms, I figured that right now is the best time to choose the item. Without any hesitation, I made my way back to Driftveil City to take on the gym. When it came to taking on the trainers, Basculin destroyed basically everything without an issue, so I had a little bit of confidence that I could possibly take down the badge with Basculin alone. Clay's team consists of Krokorok, Palpitoad, and Excadrill as the ace. On the first attempt, Basculin was able to deal a ton of damage, but unfortunately because Krokorok used Swagger, I missed a critical turn that would have let me take down Excadrill as well, which then led to it sweeping the rest of my team. The next few attempts made it extremely obvious that Basculin did have the potential to run through the entire team if it could get a Swagger boost with no downside, but I knew that if I just took a little bit of time to grab one special Pokemon, it would save me a ton of time in this section. Believe it or not, Deerling is for sure the best Pokemon for this section, as it has coverage for pretty much everything in the gym. It's definitely another one of those, it looks weak, but for some reason it's really strong types of Pokemon. On the 5th attempt against Clay, I ended up getting a crit Aqua Jet that one shot, which gave me an immediate advantage over the rest of the attempts so far. I managed to get a ton of Aqua Jet damage on Excadrill, but because I didn't get the right ranges, he was able to heal and then take me down. Because I knew Clay was going to waste a second heal, I switched to Yamask and let off a Will-O-Wisp to make him basically useless, and with Throw's Vital Throw, I left him with only his Palpitoad. With our God Deer, I used Leech Seed to guarantee the win, but because Palpitoad didn't really have an answer to healing other than Aqua Ring, I was able to slowly take him down to defeat the 5th gym leader. Realistically, I could have finished this in a lot less attempts, but I really wanted to see if I could destroy him with just Basculin, which took up way too much time. Alright, what's next? From here we have another battle against Bianca, and then Clay will destroy the cobwebs blocking the entrance to Johnstone Cave on Route 6. This is obviously the first real section of the game where you have to deal with Team Plasma, but fortunately there are a ton of really great Pokemon that we can collect here to help with the lengthy list of trainers we'll have to challenge. In addition, we get the Lucky Egg, which will be such a great help for future grinding sessions. When it came to taking on all the trainers here, it really wasn't all that bad. I will admit that I had to completely heal after nearly every single battle that I took on, but thankfully there is a doctor that'll heal your team right next to this pathway of grunts, so I didn't have to go all the way back to Driftveil every single time. At the exit of the cave, we have another battle with N, but even with my mediocre team, it really didn't take all that much effort to get through this part. Upon leaving the cave, we reach Mr. Alton City and meet Skyla and the other professor and are more than free to take on our gym. Now I know that I just mentioned there were a ton of great Pokemon that would help with the next gym in Johnstone Cave, and to be fair I wasn't wrong, but there is one place much better that we can take advantage of. If we head up to Route 7, we can walk in the grass and encounter Zebstrika. In the regular grass, you can find them ranging for levels 27 to 29, but in the doubles grass at the end of the route, you can find them as high as level 33. These have nearly the same exact moveset as the ones that we fought in Elisa's gym, and knowing that the next gym is flying, I would assume that this would be our best option out of all the accessible locations so far. After catching a few more of them, I made my way through the Celestial Tower and rang the notification bell after subscribing, and then made my way back to the city to take on the gym. As you can imagine, my group of zebras were able to take down every trainer in the gym without any issues. Wait, is that what they're called? A group of zebras? Oh, it's a dazzle. I have a dazzle of zebras. Wow, just look at them go. Stunning. Skyla's team consists of Swoobat, Unpheasant, and Swanna as the ace, and as you can probably imagine, this battle didn't last too long. Because our team had literally no answers for electric-type Pokemon, I was able to get through this battle in less than 2 minutes. I think I might go as far to say that out of literally any Pokemon game in the series, this might possibly be the easiest gym in the no experience challenge. I genuinely think it's harder to lose than it is to win this one. Anyways, with that out of the way, we now have 6 badges, so let's see who we're up against next. If we head back up north, we can take on Charon at the entrance of the mountain, which was once again a little difficult because I didn't really have a counter for a couple Pokemon on his team. I kinda assumed that Flame Charge was going to deal enough to take Servine down, but it ended up stalling out my entire team, so I grabbed another higher level Tranquil from another route to fix that issue. I also ended up catching Watchog, which may seem like a strange choice, however it does have Super Fang, which gives us a free opportunity to knock down half of the HP of any single Pokemon that we face. After finishing the battle, Alder shows up and gives us the HM for Surf, which is not only a really strong move, but it allows us to access some new locations that we couldn't go to earlier. After making my way through Twist Mountain, I stopped at the exit to catch a couple Girder, because I assumed that it was going to be the best option for the time being before taking on the next gym. The Isra City gym is focused around Ice-type Pokemon, and for the first time in a bit, we're pretty under-leveled, which in my opinion I didn't really see an issue with, considering that I took down the last 2 gyms without really batting an eye. The trainers in the gym didn't really pose a threat, and even the Zebstrika that I had left on my team were able to deal pretty significant damage despite the level gap. Bryson's team once again consists of 3 Pokemon, including Vanillish, Cryogonal, and Beartick as the ace. I decided to lead with Girder and set up Bulk Up and deal damage with Wake Up Slap. Although I didn't knock out the Vanillish alone, I did make him waste both Hyper Potions on the first Pokemon, which definitely helped make this battle go through a lot smoother. I sent out Zebstrika and my other Girder to take down Vanillish, which was then knocked out by his Beartick. At this point I was kinda concerned because my 2 best counters were already gone, but I switched into Watchog and landed his Super Fang to make a big dent for my next Pokemon. I sent out another Zebstrika and Beartick went for Swagger, which was easily the worst choice when it had a pretty high chance of knocking me out with something like Slash. I broke out and went for Flame Charge to take it down, which left me against his Cryogonal. Even without the attack boost, I'm pretty sure I would have won because Cryogonal has a groundbreaking 30 base defense, but with another attack I was able to finish this gym on the first attempt. With 7 badges down, it's now time to take on a little bit more of the Team Plasma storyline. Because I knew the levels were going to start to really take a toll on the team, I figured the best option would be to take a stab at some really strong Pokemon. I flew back to Driftveil City, and by heading north again, I can now surf on the river. After climbing out of the depths of an old man, we reach the entrance to the Mistralton Cave. While there are plenty of great encounters like Axew in here, the real prize is in the deepest part of the cave. After dealing with another old man and his antique stories, we can head into the deepest part of the guidance chamber and take on our first legendary, Cobalion. Now, aside from the very obvious fact being that it's absurdly high level compared to the rest of our team, Cobalion has some insane stats that give it great potential to carry us through a majority of the rest of the game. Even though my team isn't exactly fit for a battle like this, a lot of people forget that I'm a gamer, and I have the knowledge to catch something like this in only 8 Dust Balls. With this event completed, we can now challenge the other 2 beasts, so long as we can access the area, so I made my way back to the Pinwheel Forest and entered the Rumination Field to challenge Virizion. Unfortunately, this one was a real pain because it took me 1 Dust Ball to catch, which really took up an important 2 minutes of my time, but with that out of the way, we're ready for some more story content. With my new tanks, I ventured back to Isra City and scaled the Dragon Spiral Tower with really no issues. Nearly every grunt here is weak to fighting moves, so it literally took minutes to reach the top. After confronting N and seeing his own legendary, we can return to the Relic Castle and fight a few more grunts and talk to Getsus about liberation or something, before collecting the legendary stone from Alder and Lenora to summon the second legendary. From here we can go and challenge Bianca at the Route 8 gate, which to no surprise was a complete wash, and we have another conversation with Getsus and the Nintendo Ninjas before entering the next gym location. In Opelucid City, Getsus fails to convince everyone to throw out their Pokemon, and we learn about the history of America with Iris and Drayden before having to take on their gym. This gym is themed around Dragon-type Pokemon, which may sound daunting when you think of how busted a lot of dragons are in this region, but there is one secret trick that we have to make this a lot easier: Cobalion. Because this Pokemon resists basically everything, I was able to just Sacred Sword my way to the gym leader. I did have to heal a few times, which is especially annoying in this gym because you have to fight literally every trainer and can't just turn around and go back whenever you want. Iris is the final gym leader in our challenge, and her team is Fracture, Druddigon, and Haxorus as the ace, which is a pretty terrifying team regardless of what you brought to battle. Thankfully, because I fought like 86 Fracture already in this gym, I knew that Sacred Sword was the play to take that down, to which she then sent out Druddigon. Because I wanted to preserve Cobalion's HP for the ace, I swapped into Watchhog and was able to Super Fang to make it much easier to take out. Because I hadn't used Virizion at all in this challenge so far, I let it finish out the Druddigon before facing Haxorus. Because she knew the Cobalion completely walled her team, she kept going for Dragon Dance and ended up landing every Dragon Tail and one-shotting my whole team. Although I knew Cobalion couldn't outspeed, I decided to go for Sacred Sword, and for some reason, after already using 5 Dragon Dances, she thought another one would secure taking down my monstrous 46 HP left, which gave me the free pass to take down her final Pokemon. With that out of the way, we've collected every gym badge in the Unova region. However, there is still one more challenge that we're going to have to take on before we're done with the rest of this challenge. After exiting the gym, Professor Juniper gives us a Master Ball to guarantee catching the opposite legendary Pokemon to ends, but I think we're going to use that for another encounter. If we fly back to Route 7, we can meet up with the old couple at their house and accidentally summon the legendary roamer for this game, Thundurus. Because it roams around the region, this can be a little bit of a pain to find, but if you just follow the locations on the route gates, you should be able to track it down relatively quickly.
No, I didn't miss it. Did it move? Where was I when this happened? Hello?
On the other hand, the game might just decide it for you when you get to fight it, so just keep that in mind if you do this yourself. After using our Master Ball, half of our team now consists of just legendaries, which makes me hopeful that the rest of this challenge will be a lot easier than it was in the first half. Back on Route 10, we have one more battle against Charon, which was a little embarrassing to watch, before being able to head to the gates to reach the final areas of the game. Victory Road is the ultimate test before the ultimate test, and although our team could potentially be fine on their own to challenge the Pokemon League, there are a couple more Pokemon that could be a great help. Early in the run, I was told by Small Ant that the only way I could win would be able to find an absurd collection of ants, so I took a little bit of time tracking Durant down. I did end up naming the first one after him because he's the first person that I know that did this challenge for this generation, but I ended up finding an adamant one later, so I kind of replaced him with that one. Please don't cancel me, Mr. Ant. I got bills to pay. Oh god, it's already happening. After scaling the entire mountain, I reached the location at the end of the challenge, but there's still a little bit of time to do one more thing. If we head back into the cave and take the second staircase, we can enter the trial chamber and take on the last of the Musketeers, Terrakion. Although we're really stacking up on the same typings, the sheer strength of this Pokemon makes it 100% worthwhile. Once again, this was a real pain because I had to throw like 3 dust balls to catch it, which really took up way too much of my time, but hopefully this will really pay off later on. After heading back to the league, I began crafting the team and going over all the items I needed to make this go as smoothly as possible. It was around this time when I realized that the Adamant Durant that I got was better than Cobalion in nearly every single way, so I could tell immediately that our team was going to do really well. I ended up spending about a half an hour teaching my team as many stab and coverage moves as I could, as well as getting some really important items like the bug and fighting gems to help with specific matchups. With my new team of the 3 legendary Pokemon, Will Smith, and our small army of ants, I made my way into the Elite Four, ready to beat this challenge. To make this part a little less predictable, I let my chat vote on the order I'd fight them in, to which I gave them the options of Chantal, Grimsley, Marshall, and Birdwoman, because I forgot the last person's name. I then realized that Birdwoman is in fact Kahili, who is not only in this Elite Four, but not in the game at all. I'm dumb. Caitlin's team is all about psychic Pokemon, and out of all the leaders, I was pretty confident this was going to be the easiest one of them all with the coverage that I had. She always leads with Reuniclus, so I decided to lead with Durant. It was at this point that I found out that Stab X Scissor combined with Hustle let me one-shot Reuniclus, so I assumed that this battle was going to be in the bag. That was until she sent out Sigilyph and Outsped and nearly one-shot the rest of my team. After taking down 4 of my members, I sent out Terrakion and went for Rock Slide and found out that I could outspeed, which, to be fair, I should have looked at that before sacking the entire team, but I mean, come on, what does this Pokemon scream 108 base speed to you? As a result, I did lose, but after using Terrakion to take out Sigilyph, I was able to run through the rest of the team with Durant like I initially planned to. Up next, Chad voted for Grimsley. Because his team is focused around Dark-type Pokemon, I'm sure you can imagine how this went for him. I figured that Terrakion could take care of most of the work, but Crocodile was kind of giving me a little bit of trouble, so I had to use the only thing I could possibly think of to win. Content.
Oh, that sucks. But I live with Justified, and it cancels it out, and I do big gaming damage. And, oh, no, you ruined the pop-off! But I get a crit, and it's clutch. It didn't look like range. It didn't look like the range. But I get the crit and I pop off, baby!
With Grimsley's team taken down, we can make our way to the third leader, Marshall. To be honest, this battle was pretty straightforward aside from having to deal with Sock's Rock Slide running through Thunderous and not really having any sort of super effective moves to take him down easier, but with some big brain plays and a couple of missed jump kicks, I was able to take him down, and with half of my team still standing. The final member of the Elite Four is Chantal, whose team is entirely made of Ghost-type Pokemon. I think out of the four, this was probably the most annoying battle to deal with. I figured that Durant could take down everything with Crunch, but Cofagrigus' Will-O-Wisp makes them completely useless, so you just have to hope that he either misses or you land a crit to take him out. To give myself a better chance, I decided to teach Toxic to Cobalion and lead with that instead. Although that did help short term, it ended up knocking that out and Will-O-Wisping both of my Durant. I ended up just sacking them off and taking it out with Thunderous, which left me once again with half of my team. Her next Pokemon was Chandelure, which I was able to take out with Terrakion's Rock Slide, and Golurk really didn't have an answer for Virizion. Now, if you thought that Cofagrigus was annoying, Jellicent was much worse. Because it's so bulky, I didn't really have any good answers for it, so I just used Toxic to guarantee the win as long as my team could stay alive. I swapped into Thunderous and landed Thunderbolt to bring it down, and stalled it out for the last 2 turns for the poison damage to knock it out. With all the Elite Four down, we can approach Alder and N in the Champions area and watch him call out his blow-up castle from the ground. After running after him, we're guided by the Shadow Triad to challenge him at the throne. Upon approaching us, he summons the legendary Pokemon, to which our own stone activates and Zekrom appears in front of us. Thankfully, we were able to catch this and use it for the final battle, and because it's a boosted catch rate for being the box legendary, I only needed to throw a few dust balls before I could add it to the team. After looking over my team, I realized that I didn't really need Thunderous anymore, so I swapped it for Zekrom to give myself the strongest Pokemon this far in the game. For the battle against N, both legendaries are made to face off against each other, so you can't really prepare for this matchup, but fortunately this is the best counter that we have at the moment. I ended up getting a turn 1 Dragon Breath Paralysis on Reshiram, and for some reason he chose to go for Hyper Beam even though it was faster and could have knocked me out. Because he couldn't heal, I was able to take it down. He then switches into Vanillux, who gets obliterated by a Fighting Gem boosted Sacred Sword. After this, he uses Kling Klang and I decide to stay in, and I somehow live a Focus Blast and knock out what turned out to be Zoroark right after. From here he uses Caracosta, and I knew that Terrakion had done his job, so I let him go down to Aqua Jet to get the clean swap. I sent out Virizion and knocked it down to its Sturdy ability, which was probably the best case scenario because N healed and I was able to regain full HP after knocking it out. With Archeops next, I used Durant and ended up dodging Stone Edge and knocking it out with Iron Head to bring him down to his last Pokemon. Kling Klang was by far the most annoying Pokemon on the team, but considering that I had 4 of my Pokemon at almost full health, I knew this was in the bag in the first try. Although we've taken down the champion, the game isn't over until we've completed one more battle against the leader of Team Plasma, Getsus. Although I had a relatively easy time beating N, Getsus was a whole nother animal. The Cofagrigus that we had trouble with earlier is back again, and although I did have coverage for it, it did an amazing job toxic stalling my entire team. After taking that down with 3 Pokemon, he sends out Hydreigon and conveniently lands every Focus Blast and runs through the rest of my team. By the time I was halfway through the battle, I had 3 Pokemon with combined HP that totaled to like half health of 1 Pokemon, so as you can probably assume, I lost very badly. Even though my team is really busted, Getsus' team covers literally everything I throw at it and hits like a truck, so I'm going to need a new game plan if I really want to finish this challenge. After a few more attempts, I decided to swap around the items to give myself a better chance. I once again led with Zekrom and went for an Electric Gem boosted Fusion Bolt, which knocked it out with a crit. Eliminating that saved like a third of the members on my team, but instead of sending out Hydreigon, he then chooses Bufalon. Because I didn't have an answer that would outspeed this beast, I decided to stay in and deal as much damage as I could before sending out Durant. I was just barely able to knock it out with Iron Head, which then led to him switching to Hydreigon. I switched in to see if I could get some damage off, but it landed Fire Blast and obliterated Durant. I figured my only option now is to swap into Terrakion and get a Quick Claw Sacred Sword, but the game said absolutely not, and then I also got destroyed by Focus Blast. I then tried using Cobalion and got knocked out by Fire Blast, and at this point I just assumed I had lost considering I'm halfway through the fight and I only had 2 Pokemon left. On my last legs, I sent out my second Durant and managed to avoid the first ever move by Hydreigon and take it down with X-Scissor. Electros is sent out, and knowing that it has 0 weaknesses, I just ran it with X-Scissor again, to which I one-shot it with a crit. Now the tables have turned, I swap into Virizion to take on Seismitoad. Although this should have been an easy matchup, it landed a Sludge Wave that poisoned me, so I knew that I had basically 0 chance to pull through on this. What I didn't expect though is that he ended up using his last heal here, so I was able to Giga Drain to heal Virizion to full before sending out his final Bisharp. With 2 Sacred Swords, I was able to make the ultimate comeback and take down the final boss of the game. With that, I've successfully beat Pokemon White without earning any experience points in battle. But how did I do? So let's review. In total, this took me a little over 17 hours to beat the game, and for the most part, this was a really fun challenge aside from maybe the beginning. If I'm being honest, this was a lot easier than when I attempted this in Platinum, which if you made it this far into the video and haven't seen that, I'm sure you'll enjoy how stubborn I get at some points just to say I can beat a trainer a certain way. I think a big part of this region that makes it easy is that the game will straight up give you an entire route next to the gym that will completely counter everything you have, i.e. Skyla's gym and the Chargestone Cave, but despite that, I think this was a really fun challenge to take on. So that's pretty much going to do it for today's video, but if you'd like to see me do more of this challenge, let me know which game I should take on in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it if you took the time to subscribe if you liked the video, as it really helps out my channel a lot. And finally, if you want to see me do more challenges like this, I stream nearly every day on Twitch, which you can find in the description. If you like the content enough, maybe use a free Prime subscription to help me beat the next challenge for this channel. Other than that, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.